Awesome. And that's it. We're live. So thank you very much to Flowgear for joining us here today. This is our Galentine's Day special. So we've got, or at least I chose to wear special attire, and it's okay. We'll let Logan and Matt live their best life. So this one is a really good one today. I'm very excited to share it with everybody. And Flowgear has got some amazing technology integration help for us that they're going to share. And I'll go ahead and let Logan kick us off.
Yep, perfect. Thank you, Maria. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to the meeting here live today or watching the recording. We very much appreciate you giving us the time here to present to you all. And thank you, Maria, for getting this set up. Today, what we want to do is just present to you all a very what's called industry-focused solution that can hopefully resonate with you all very much so in the construction space, and just kind of outline who Flowgear is, what we do, and how we kind of fit into this market. So if Maria, you want to go ahead and share my screen from my side of things, I'm going to kick things off from our side. As she's pulling that up, just kind of a quick introduction here from the Flowgear side of things and who's going to be talking to you today. So myself, my name is Logan McHugh. I'm a bit more on the commercial/sales side of things here at Flowgear. I'm one of our channel account managers and sales managers here at Flowgear. And then Matt, he is more on the technical side of things, one of our integration engineers when it comes to demos, proof of concepts, things along those lines, which I'll touch on in a little bit more detail. Matt is the one that actually facilitates a lot of those processes. And we're going to show a quick demonstration today after I kind of give you my sales pitch, which he will be ultimately performing for you all. So kind of diving into things here a little bit. Again, this is Flowgear. We are a proper integration platform, and we are very much looking forward to showcasing our services.
Hey, Logan, you know what I forgot? The most exciting part was our giveaways today. So if you comment down in the comment section today, StreamYard is going to put you in a nice little randomizer, and we've got some swag for you. So I've got a sweatshirt that we're going to give away, and then Flowgear is contributing some phone stands made out of bamboo, which I happen to love because it's very sustainable, right? We have a lot of extra bamboo around, especially in Alabama. So that's wonderful. So now we've got that turned on, and if you comment, then you'll be entered to win, and we'll do that at the end of the show. Go ahead, Logan.
Perfect. Sounds great. So hopping into here, things from the Flowgear side. So, as far as what is Flowgear, with whom do we compete, and how do we kind of differentiate in this market? Respectively so, in the world of integration, there are many different types of tools that exist. With everybody here being very familiar with the construction space, I'm sure you're very familiar with a lot of these native connectors that exist in softwares on the construction side, like a Procore or a Buildertrend or an Autodesk. They have these very out-of-the-box native connectors. On the ERP space, like a Sage, an Acumatica, NetSuite. Again, all of these tools have very much what they call native connectors, or very plug-and-play type solutions, which can solve a very specific function, or ultimately very limited to functionality. You as companies, I'm sure, have a very particular way in not only what data you want to integrate, but how that data integrates, and a lot of those processes that go into that, where those tools can fall short. So that's why there's alternate solutions that exist out there. For example, something like a Flowgear. Flowgear, we truly are a proper middleware solution that falls into the category of iPaaS. That's Integration Platform as a Service. And we are very much a customizable integration solution that can truly integrate anything. Our middleware platform enables businesses of all sizes to really shed that workload and complexity of the integration component, not only quickly, but affordably as well. What we do is we allow companies, without writing any code or low code, if that's the preference, and you'll see that in the demonstration today, to really integrate any application, service, API, database, really anything at all. And then really how we've achieved this and kind of how we've gone to market is through our large ecosystem of what we call pre-built application and technology connectors, which really do provide instant integration to hundreds of SaaS and on-prem applications, as well as reusable workflows and APIs. We like to say what we have over 300 pre-built application connectors covering all your mainstream CRMs, ERPs, e-commerce, nonprofit, construction, financial, you name it, types of technology. So in the ERP space, as you'll see with some of these logos up here, we have the Sages of the world, and that's all Sage products: a Sage Intacct, a Sage 100, a Sage 300, 550, all Sage products. We're actually Sage partners as well. You have an Acumatica, a NetSuite, an SAP, that's for HANA, B1, one, you name it. In the CRM space, we have the tools like a Salesforce, a HubSpot, a Zoho, a Dynamics 365. And then in the construction space, we have your Procores, your Autodesk, Builder Trend, Builder Prime, etc. Really what these connectors are designed to do is abstract away a lot of those complexities and time of connecting to and working with these applications and their APIs. And then what we do is we only visually surface the relevant functionality, objects, and fields that are available within those applications to just truly, again, make that whole idea of connecting into these technologies a very seamless process. Also, quick side note, while we have 300 plus now, we are also growing this ecosystem on a daily basis. So if anybody here works with the system quite commonly and they would like a connector built out there, we are open ears and always looking to do so. We have a team dedicated to that. But generally speaking, and for everybody to know, and this is a very important piece of this, is to make ourselves extremely versatile. When an application connector is not available, we have what we call generic technology connectors that are truly used to integrate anything. So again, we are not restricted to these connectors that you see on the screen or the ones I've talked about or the ones listed on our website. We are very respectful of the fact, especially in the construction vertical, there is a tremendous amount of different technologies out there, whether it's a very commonly used application that we just don't happen to have an app for, whether it's a proprietary built system, an on-prem system, some type of legacy software you're using. As long as any technology out there has an API that's accessible, some type of SDK we can call into, doesn't have to be a cloud-based software, it can be an on-prem software, it can be a database, a desktop application. If there's a means and a way to push and pull data through those generic technology connectors, Flowgear truly does have the capabilities to work with those systems. So again, being very respectful of the fact in the construction vertical and a vertical that we work very extensively in, there is pretty much a new technology that comes up on a daily basis. But again, we have kind of grown our capabilities, and the fact through these generic technology connectors, we can actually work with absolutely anything out there.
Mm-hmm. And that's what I want to pause right there, Logan, because that is so powerful. You know, a lot of the times we look through, and my brain's full of them. So occasionally I have to look them up just to double check myself before I lie to somebody. But, you know, a lot of the other platforms will only connect to a certain amount of, other platforms, right? And so you see like maybe 10 connectors. Some people focus on one, right? Like there's folks out there that only integrate QuickBooks Online. Okay. And then even some of those will go ahead and specialize some more, and they'll add something like, invoice capture and integration, but only for that one ERP. So this is something that I think is really amazing and powerful, is that we're saying, you can hook up to anything, just let us know what it is. And if we can connect to it, then it's possible.
Absolutely. Yeah, Maria makes a great point there. And on top of that, and to kind of justify a lot of that, and something I'll touch on here in a bit more detail in a moment, is while we can sit here and say that anything is possible, we have some very unique pre-sales tools that actually put the money to our word here, where we actually do things like a proof of concept or a customized demo that showcase some of that functionality. But like I said, I'll get into a little bit more detail on that as well. But again, working in these verticals and being experts in this space, we understand that there's only different solutions that are coming our way. So we have to be able to kind of expand our capabilities and what we can and cannot work with. Mm-hmm. Kind of a quick just slide here, and you'll see this in a little bit more of a demonstration here shortly. But the overall idea is once you've integrated all these different systems together, the next step is to actually visually build out workflows to pass data between these systems, to automate a process, fulfill a transaction across internal customer or supplier systems. Truly, this is really where the value of Flowgear is derived. The platform essentially gives clients a blank canvas to build a very powerful rules engine to determine how, when, and in what context their data should be used. Again, that's to automate processes and really solve real-world objectives that will hopefully increase revenue, reduce cost, and create a very significant competitive advantage in the industry, which is a great kind of leeway into the construction vertical. So while, as you've seen through this large ecosystem of connectors that we have, Flowgear, for the most part, is very agnostic when it comes to our verticals. However, we have learned over the years that there are certain verticals that integration hits home for, and we've kind of become a lot more of what we would say masters in that world of understanding where the value of what we offer is. And construction just happens to be one of them, given the many moving parts, not only literally, but with their technical side of things as well, to how Flowgear can fit in. So when it comes to the construction vertical and kind of why integration truly is mission critical is we understand that construction does not run on one system. It truly does run on workflows or a lot of different operations kind of piecing together one big puzzle. We understand that, construction companies, they truly do choose their software for a very specific job site problem or reason. And over time, that turns into a stack of technologies, not just a single platform to run most efficiently. Kind of in that reality, we see systems like a Procore, a Buildertrend, or an Autodesk used for their project execution and field operations and so on. The likes of a Sage or an Acumatica for the financials, job costs, payroll estimating, schedules, document control, all those types of things that happen. So what that then creates is not only the problem is not the software, the problem is then the gaps between those softwares. And truly what happens without integration is a lot of different factors that could come into place. For example, job costs updated after the fact, not in real time, can cause problems. PMs, accounting, and executives all working on different numbers, causing data silos in different systems, manual re-entry between systems, causing errors, delays, write-offs, and so on like that. And then change orders that are ultimately potentially approved in the field, but stuck in accounting, payroll, AP, and WIP, consistently playing catch up because that's not something that's constantly integrated between those technologies. And that's truly through integration where some of these margins kind of very quietly disappear. We like to say that disconnected systems absolutely amplify that risk of how a company operates, where integrated systems absolutely protect the margin within those companies.
Logan, can we go back? Because this is my favorite part, right? So a lot of what we do at ConTech Financials is helping people troubleshoot, figure out, diagnose, set up comparison dashboards, all between their ERP and namely Procore, right? Or even other systems. And so when you can have this integration of your data going on, it is incredibly powerful and really becoming necessary, right? Because we're saying these are very critical items. And if some people are working under the assumption that the PO hasn't been issued or maybe the budget hasn't been increased yet, then it can affect their decision making. And that's something that we don't have time for, right? Especially in construction. What we need is the most up-to-date information to be available to anybody who needs it. And that's what integrating the data can really solve for us there.
Absolutely. Those are all great points there. And that kind of leads me into my second and final portion here in the construction vertical, and truly kind of getting more concrete on, where Flowgear fits directly is, while Flowgear connects the entire, generally speaking, we like to say Flowgear does truly connect the whole entire construction ecosystem, not just those popular applications out there that exist that have those native tools. Flowgear truly is not just about integrating, let's just say, a Procore to a Sage Intacct. It's about integrating all tools and processes in the construction space. We like to say Flowgear connects things like project management to ERP and job costing, field data to accounting and payroll, change orders to billing, custom spreadsheets to core systems, proprietary homegrown tools to modern platforms. At the end of the day, if it has data, Flowgear can truly integrate it. And that's why that matters specifically for construction firms. I think, again, working in this vertical for quite some time and understanding the technology space around construction, we understand that most construction companies have legacy systems that they really can't rip and replace, or custom workflows that they've built over the years, some type of regional compliance and reporting requirements that make them unique, or specialized estimating equipment or safety tools that they may be using. So Flowgear being in this gap here, we don't force companies into a very rigid connector model. We truly do integrate around the business processes and not the other way around, kind of conforming to our customers. Generally speaking, we like to say construction companies really don't fail because they choose the wrong software. They struggle because their systems don't talk to each other. Ooh. Integration is truly what turns technology into that operational leverage.
Mm-hmm. That part. And I just want to emphasize how important it is to have, we'll say, like data engineers, more technical folks familiar with construction, right? Because there are plenty of programmers out in the world. We love them. We need them. But the ones that either have experience in construction or just experience helping a lot of people in construction are very valuable to us because they understand our processes and the different things that are specific to our industry. Right. So anybody can hook up data and anybody can program. We love that. And when it comes to construction, we've got a few things that are specific to us, right? And so we need somebody familiar with those things so that we can get the best value out of our integrations.
Absolutely. That's a great point there. And kind of before my last slide here, before we kind of get into the demonstration, we've had a common just kind of phrase that's been brought up in this space as we've, let's call it, done more and more work in this space is, Flowgear is the integration layer that connects every system across the construction operation, ERP, project management, field tools, and even custom solutions. Again, so the business truly does run as one entity as efficiently and effectively as possible. One thing I quickly touched on earlier that I just wanted to make apparently clear before we get into a demonstration is this idea of a complementary proof of concept. Hopefully everything that we've been saying so far sounds great and hits home and could be a potential fit for your company and how you guys currently operate. What we like to do in a very unique, let's call it, pre-sales tool that exists in our space is this idea of a complementary proof of concept. So one thing that Flowgear is 100% willing to do for any of you is offer this. We like to say there's an 85% success rate around it. I like to say that's a little bit higher, as well as that 10-day turnaround. That's kind of our cap, but usually it's something that's done in a matter of days. Matt here on the call is one of the ones that puts together some of those proof of concepts. But what these are designed to do is really take your use case, identify the pain points or the needs or requirements from an integration component, and actually build out something showcasing that. While we can do this with systems that we just have standing sandboxes to, we are basically capable of getting as granular as possible and taking even sandbox access to your technologies, taking something that you think might be tougher to integrate with or a bit more of a unique process, really anything at all, and actually build out a portion of that integration completely for free. This is a 100% free process to really say, hey, Flowgear is capable in doing so. This is how we're capable in doing so. This is what it looks like and how it works. And of course, in doing these proof of concepts, I think they have two sides in being a very powerful pre-sales tool. One, of course, hopefully confirming that trust around the capabilities of our platform and showcasing that. That's the most obvious part. But more importantly, and I think kind of what we've outlined here today is, while most out there think they might understand the power of integration, until they actually see it live in action and what we're able to do is when they truly do understand the real power of what we offer. So these proof of concepts, once they actually see this live in action, light bulbs start going off for different ideas of how this could ultimately kind of work optimally in their business. So it's a win-win from both sides of things here, allowing us to be more effective with our customers. Hence why we offer them to anybody for completely for free.
Mm-hmm. And so that's where I just want to just sit and revel in the fact, because there are so many platforms that will charge you for a proof of concept, right? And it may not be too expensive. It might be a couple of $1,000s, but that's still a couple of $1,000s out of your profit, right? And then what happens if the proof of concept doesn't go well or doesn't go as expected? And all of a sudden, that's not the vendor you want to go with. You've lost $2,000 and now you need to go find another vendor. Right. So that's really, really powerful. And another little side story I want to share was when I first started helping folks with integrating financial data at all. Excuse me. And they'd say things like, well, yeah, but how does it work? But how does that happen? And so once you kind of see the process of what it would be like for your end users, it really does help with those light bulbs go off. But also at a certain point, my favorite question, even after folks see it, is, yeah, but how did that happen? Right. So at that point, it's an engineered discussion. And for me, I just tell people that it's magic. And these are my magic tricks, right? Is that we can approve it in one system and have it show up in another.
1,000%. Yep, that is a great point there. And at the end of the day, too, given you're satisfied with what you see in the proof of concept, it's only given us a head start in getting into the implementation process, where we're already familiar with your process, your system, since we've already connected into them. Just gives us a jump start, and that ultimately cuts down on the time and cost to get that in place as well. So it's a win-win for everybody here. With that being said, kind of the next thing we wanted to do here is to get into a live demonstration. So with this live demonstration, it's going to give you a very clear idea of what our platform looks like, how it operates, how efficiently you can build out these integrations. But we also wanted to make this demo a bit more unique. And what I mean by that is Well, I kind of talked about our application connectors and things along those lines earlier. We're absolutely going to use one of those in Sage Intacct. But what we wanted to do is we're actually going to build something from Builder Prime to Sage Intacct. Builder Prime is not one of our pre-built application connectors, but we're able to connect into it through one of those generic technology connectors. So again, taking an instance like this, and might commonly exist in this space where we're taking a system we're not as familiar with and connecting it into another. Through a live demonstration today, we're going to show how simple and seamless that process still is through our generic technology connectors. So to kind of shed light on not only application connectors, but those generic technology connectors as well, to again show kind of the ease of use of building out these integrations. So with that being said, Maria, feel free to kick it over to Matt's side of things and we can get this in motion.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you so much, Logan. That was a really good. I love it when people have slides. And so that was a nice little intro for us to go into the live version here. Matt, can you take us away?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Logan. Thank you, Maria. Again, my name is Matt Baldner, integration engineer over here at Flowgear. And just wanted to take you guys through just a pretty basic demo today. Again, like Logan mentioned, it'll be between Builder Prime and Sage Intacct. We'll essentially grab jobs or leads that are in a closed won or a won status, and then process those over to Sage Intacct as invoices. Before we actually get to the pre-baked out demo here between Builder Prime and Sage Intacct, I just wanted to show you all kind of how we formulate these integrations, very basic kind of walkthrough live, so that it makes a little bit more sense once we get to the pre-baked out demo on our side. So I'm going to go ahead first off and just create a test workflow here to show you all what the design canvas looks like. So again, once you create a new workflow, this is where you'll be greeted with the Flowgear design canvas. The purpose of the canvas is to facilitate a low to no code drag and drop design process. How we emphasize that dragging and dropping are these plus icons on the back of the screen here. If we open up one of these plus icons, again, this is going to bring up what we call a node, and a node is just a particular integration process, and it's going to do something for us in integration. I won't go into all four of these, but these are the different node types that we have. Connectors are pretty self-explanatory. I do want to touch on what Logan touched on before. Over 300 branded connectors for your mainstream CRM, ERP, e-commerce, financial systems. But what has made us incredibly flexible is the use of those generic technology connectors. So even if we don't have a quote unquote branded connector for the system you are using, just to kind of showcase this, if it's a REST-backed API for that system, we could use something like a REST request. Same thing on the SOAP side for a SOAP request. But just to show you all kind of how we formulate these and what goes into these integrations, at least at the surface level, we'll bring up just a simple, basic, flow here, ETL flow, where we'll have Salesforce as our source here. Our quick map in the middle, this is going to be our flagship transformation tool, and we'll kind of dive into how we translate or transform that data from a source to a target perspective. And then we'll bring up Sage Intacct on the backside. First step is obviously going to be establishing a connection to that system or application. If you're creating one for the first time, you can hit this plus button here. I obviously have a pre-configured connection for the purposes of this demo. We can dive into these connection details. I'll be brief here just to show you what this looks like. For our branded connectors, these credentials will be specific to that system or application. So if you're familiar with Salesforce's API, you'll see things on our Salesforce node for consumer key, consumer secret, or URL, those types of things. I also want to touch on, you can see here we have our credentials laid out in our test environment. If we move over to production, you can see those are empty. So as you are developing workflows and promoting those through the software development lifecycle of a dev, test, UAT, production, you're able to enter in different credentials per environment. These environments are also customizable. So in-house, if you guys do have a dev, test, UAT, production, you're able to add environments to these tenants as well. But once we're kind of happy with our credentials for this specific node or connector, we can go ahead and hit the test button and confirm that our connection is successful to that system. I won't dive into the Sage Intacct side, but same thing on the Sage Intacct side. You'll see things like a client ID, client secret, given we're using the new Sage Intacct REST API, and you can authenticate that way as well. So how we choose the particular action we want to perform against these systems on the API side, that's going to be through something we call samples. So if you hit this drop down here and select choose sample, and give this just a moment here, this is going to bring up all the actions that we can take against, in this case, Salesforce's API. So for these branded connectors, we essentially wrap the API and expose 100% of that API's functionality through these samples. So again, on the Salesforce side, almost 6,500 different actions. And then how you choose the particular action you want to perform or choose your sample, you can filter up here on the top. So just to keep this basic as an intro, we'll go ahead and query an account on the Salesforce side. And then you'll see our action is changed to query on the account object. And then this will provide in Salesforce's case, kind of a SQL query of what fields we're going to pull from that specific object. So again, this could be opportunities. You can pull custom objects as well. Kind of whatever data you're looking to pull out of Salesforce or push into will be taken care of through those samples. So, common occurrence on our side, Salesforce, you might have opportunities that you only want to pull in a closed won status. Again, you can add filters down here on the bottom section to only pull the relevant data you then want to push to your target system. But just to keep this simple, we'll just limit this to one record for now. We can go ahead and run this node in isolation just to show you what it looks like when we pull data out of one of these connectors. So down here is going to be the activity log. It'll show us what has run. So we can see here we have our request and then our response. And then, this is going to confirm two things. One, our connection is working. And two, we're actually pulling the data that we want to pull out of our source system. So this is the response from Salesforce. You can look at this in a tabular or XML or JSON format, depending on the system. And in that case, our source system is set up here. Now we're going to do the same thing on the Sage Intacct side. We'll come over here and select choose sample. And once again, we'll see all of the particular actions we can take against Sage Intacct's API in this case, over 1,400. So whether that's purchase orders, sales orders, invoices, projects, whatever the case is, you can obviously come in here and type this into the filter and select that particular sample.
You know what this reminds me of, Matt?
Yeah.
I tell people I'm not an engineer. Very specifically, I own that. But what I do fancy myself as of the past few months is what I've heard people call vibe coder. Right. And so this is like, for me, basically a way to vibe code, right? But without generic, who knows what's going on out in the world, Chat GPT or its equivalent, right? And so it's reliable things that are pre-built for you that you just search for and say, that's the one I want. And then it pulls up all the things that you need to do.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And to even take that a step further, so we are rolling out a new version of our platform where we've incorporated, vibe coding to the next level, and we can send the audience a video that we recorded, much like this, a stream we recorded for our new version, where there's going to be a chat bot in the actual tenant, and then you can actually type in that chat bot in plain language saying, hey, I want to move accounts from Salesforce over to Sage Intacct, and it will actually build out a workflow from step A to Z within the platform. So we can share that video with the members attending this as well.
Yeah, thank you, Matt. I would love if we could drop that in the chat after we get done here. Because that really spoke to that. I could feel the vibe there. I love that one.
Yep, absolutely, we can. So again, here we're keeping it basic just as an intro before we hop over. On this side, we want to create a customer in Sage Intacct. Once I select that create sample, we'll see a couple things change here. Obviously, our description is going to be create a customer. And then this is actually going to provide us a sample payload of what Sage Intacct is going to expect when we pass that type of record to it. So it takes a lot of the guessing game of digging through API documentation. How does this data structure need to be formatted when I send a customer record, for example, or purchase order or sales order, whatever the specific business object is? we'll have that reference here. So now that our source and our target are set up, obviously we need to map the data between the two systems and translate that data from what comes out of Salesforce to what Sage Intacct is going to expect on the API side. So here, this was the data we originally pulled out of Salesforce. We'll hook the response from Salesforce to the source of the quick map, and then the result of the quick map to the request of Sage Intacct. And then if we hit change view, this is actually going to be how we map that data between the two systems. So we see a source data tree on our left-hand side here of the data we pulled out of Salesforce, a target data tree on our right-hand side of what Sage Intacct is going to expect when we pass, in this case, a customer record to it. So then how we map that data is simply dragging and dropping from left to right. So you can see here, we'll take the account ID out of Salesforce, hook that up to the customer ID in Sage Intacct. Same thing for the customer name. And you can see as I drag and drop these fields from left to right, it's actually going to build a real-time preview of that payload over here on the right-hand side. So super useful for when you're mapping, 20, 30, 40 fields between business objects. You can actually map that and make adjustments on the fly as you're mapping.
Mm-hmm. I love that. It's so easy. In college, they didn't teach us any particular platforms because they said, oh, there's so many. And whenever you get a job, they'll teach you how to use the systems they have. So what they did do, excuse me, was teach us how to use Microsoft Access to create these databases and connect them ourselves, right? And so that's really exactly what it was here's your data table and here's your connection to it.
Yep, 100%. So obviously we have our point-to-point mapping here at a field level, but what makes these integrations very customizable is the term map expressions over here on the right-hand side. So these are going to allow for full customization of how we pass those fields. These map expressions are based on Excel functions, so a low barrier to entry there. Anything you can do in Excel, you can do within these map expressions, whether it's count, sum, lookup, text manipulation, date manipulation, if statements, looking up values. So these map expressions are really going to allow for customization of those fields passing from our source system to our target system. And we'll look at some examples of that in the next demo.
I was going to say, so does that mean we can say if status is approved, then?
100%. So just as an example of that here, we'll pull the customer or the account type out of Salesforce over to the customer type in Sage Intacct. And we'll just put a simple if statement here saying if the type is equal to, customer direct, we want to label that as a consumer. If not, we'll just say supplier. And then as you create that thing there, you can see we can translate values from a source to a target, especially in Salesforce where there's pick list values and things like that. Your target system might have different, quote unquote, pick list values. So you can actually transform those fields at a field level. Perfect. So we will hop over to the other workflow now. I always like to provide that kind of context before we get to a long drawn out demo here. So it makes a little bit more sense for the audience on how we formulate these workflows. Again, in this pre-baked out demo here, we're going to be pulling data out of Builder Prime, jobs that are in a one status. Job one status. We'll then go ahead and check if an existing customer exists in Sage Intacct for that specific job. If it doesn't, we'll create that customer on the fly and then create an invoice tied to that newly created customer within Sage Intacct. So I'm just going to run through kind of each node, what it's doing, why it's here. Again, Builder Prime is not one of our branded connectors like Sage Intacct is. So we're going to use a web request to node generic technology connector to authenticate in there. In these generic technology connectors, you can obviously put in custom URLs, headers, bodies, things like that to, again, pull the relevant data you need to pull out of that system. From there, for each, we're essentially going to iterate over each one of those records we pull to capture them at a transaction level. And once we do that, we're actually going to pass this through what we call key values. So I'm going to jump ahead quickly, but we're going to take, as we process, in this case, invoices over to our target system, what we're going to do is actually set the key value on the back end of these workflows as a success, and then errors if they do happen as well, to give full visibility into kind of what's going on under the hood of these integrations. But in the case of a success, we'll actually tag the source system ID of that transaction, and we'll bump that up against the target system ID that's created. So in this case, it's going to be that job up against the invoice in the target system. That's going to do a couple different things for us. Number one, it's going to prevent duplicates from going to our target system. So as we run this process every day, hour, minute, however often we need to run these processes to get the data into your target system, as we pull a specific record, we'll pass this through a get key value. And this is going to go ahead and determine, have we already processed this source system ID? In this case, this is an insert only scenario. You can also perform updates out of this using this found execution flow. But AKA, if it's missing, AKA we have not processed that particular ID from the source, we'll continue on with that particular transaction. Another thing that this is going to do for us is we'll always have reference as to what transaction is equal to what in the source and the target system. So if there's ever a need for a bi-directional flow of data, we're going to pull data from our source. That data is going to ultimately end up in the target system, and then changes based on that record in the target that need to flow back to our source system. That's how we're going to facilitate that, by keeping track of what transaction is equivalent to what in each system. So from there, again, this will be an insert only scenario. To keep it simple here, we'll continue on if we have not seen that particular source system ID. From there, we're just going to go ahead and map a filter and format that filter to do a lookup in Sage Intacct to determine if we do or do not have an existing customer for that job out of Builder Prime. From there, this is essentially an if statement. We're going to do a lookup. If we return a customer ID based on our lookup in Sage, we'll just go straight into mapping that invoice. If we do not return a customer based on our customer lookup in our ERP, this false execution flow will actually come down here and create a contact and a customer on the fly. So again, this will be us mapping the contact within Sage Intacct. So very similar to what we just looked at, but just a little bit more involved. We'll see we're creating our contact here, and we see some text manipulation, replacing of digits and phone numbers, things like that when creating the contact. Once we'll then map that payload, send that over to create that contact API call on the Sage Intacct side. We'll check if that was successful. If it was, we'll then go into mapping the customer so we can tie the contact to the customer in Sage Intacct on the REST API. So again, this is going to be what we call a custom property on the quick map itself. So as we create that contact, we're going to go ahead and dynamically pull the response from the create contact call to get that contact ID. And then we'll perform a lookup within Sage Intacct on the create customer call here, where we'll go ahead and grab that contact ID out of the response and then tie that to this customer creation. From there, again, we'll check if that was successful based on a success, and this is where we'll actually loop back through and create the invoice. So again, two ways to map the invoice. One, we have an existing customer for that specific job in this case. We'll go ahead and map that invoice directly to that existing customer. If we don't, we'll actually create the customer on the fly and then loop back through and create that invoice. So again, this is going to be us creating the invoice on our side. It's a pretty basic example, but here you can see we're doing things like transactions amounts, memos, dimensions, if you have those included within your Sage Intacct setup, and then obviously terms, due dates, things like that.
Okay, thank you for taking us through that. I don't know, did you have more, or was that
No, that's pretty much it. And then obviously we'll check if that was successful or not. We'll tag that as a success from the source. In the event of a failure, we'll also have that source system ID, and then we'll emit the entire error message into the value. And from there, we can create reports, things like that, to go ahead and make operations team, tech teams, whoever needs to look into those issues from the client side aware of what's going on under the hood there.
Okay, awesome. So here's what I wanted to say though. And if you could like zoom out so people can see the whole thing that was just created. So we are saying that, yes, this is very simple for folks who are already familiar with this kind of processes, or even just a little bit of coding or full coding anyway, right? I'm sure it'd be really easy for somebody who is an actual coder. But for those of us who may not be interested in building this part out, what kind of things can Flowgear do for us as far as making sure that our map and workflow is set up?
Yep, great question. So we have a professional services team here at Flowgear. Their sole job is to build out these integrations from step A to Z. And that'll obviously start with a scope of work on our side. So as we kind of get into it, we have a integration architect on our side who will come in, and obviously we'll fill him in on what we know from the start, but he will then provide a very detailed proposal of work that has the hours for implementation, timelines for each kind of milestone within that proposal. And then obviously once that's signed off, we will work on our side with our backend project developers to stand this integration up. And you don't even need to have a resource dedicated to the integration on our side. And yeah, so we can go ahead and run this on our side just to show you what this looks like. Again, we can hit the run button up at the top. Again, this activity log will show up at the bottom. This will go through everything I just described. So I'll be brief, but just to show you what this looks like. So again, we'll pull those jobs out of Builder Prime, iterate over those, each transaction. This is where we will check if we've processed that particular key. We'll then map a filter, format that, go into our customer lookup on the Sage and tax side, determine if we have an existing customer or not. You see here it's false. We'll then go into mapping and creating the contact. We can see here that we did get a success on the true here. Again, create a customer that ties that contact to that customer. You can see here that was successful as well. And then we'll actually go into creating the invoice against that newly created customer. And then this is where we'll tag those source and target transaction IDs, so we always have reference of that.
Awesome. So for everybody who is always, wondering and very curious about, well, how, why, what is this? What do you mean it just transferred? This was the bippity boppity boo moment, right? So we hit run, the magic happened, and then you have these, technical outputs that are coming and letting you know that it went well, right? And if it didn't go well, then you would have an error message that would let you know why.
Yep, and we always create extensive error handling within these integrations. Obviously, this was a demo in a production live integration project. There's extensive error handling at each step of those. So if a contact didn't get created, we would tag that as an error. If a customer didn't get created, we would tag that as well. And then we provide extensive error reporting and things like that out of these particular integrations for every step of the way. But just to prove to you all this did work, I'll refresh my page here and we'll see a newly created invoice for today's date here for our newly created customer, Jackson Construction here.
And I love the idea of being able to set up reports on it, right? So traditionally in some other systems, they just have like an integration thing that they like to charge you for. But a lot of folks are saying, okay, I hear you say bippity boppity boo. I hear you say that it was programmed correctly and that the test project worked or the test environment's working. But how do I know on a daily basis, especially somebody in accounting who's very concerned about these financial transactions, right? How do I know for sure that these items are matching, up to date, not having an issue, things like that? So I love the idea of reports.
Yep. And then again, that's typically going to come out of when we tag these errors. There's a bunch of different ways to visually, and just to show, it'll take about 2 seconds here. Obviously, we're going to set those key values on the back end. Here, we're going to get those. This is normally how we see our customers that want to be made aware of these errors. So we'll grab all of these specific key values that we've tagged. We want to match status of error in this case. We could then emit that into XML. From there, based on that table XML, we render an Excel spreadsheet where we'll then change our action to create. This result will go into the table XML. And then we have things like email alerts, where once that specific Excel document is rendered with your key from the source, why it errored on the back end, we'll go ahead and include that as an attachment in an email. And then these are free form. So if you had distribution groups, individual team members, whoever needed to look into or be made aware of those errors, every time this runs or on a hourly basis, daily basis, they would get a report of what actually failed on the back end. And
now that is sharp.
Yep. So obviously all of our magic happens on the back end, but we always want to make business users or our clients aware of what's going on the back end. So, even if you wanted to see all transactions, you can change this to any and then filter in a report of errors, things like that. So along with that, we have retry mechanisms. We can build front ends where, if there's a data error on the front end for, salespeople misentering in information, you could actually go in and just add in specific IDs from the source and rerun specific transactions if that was useful to you all as well.
Nice. I was going to say, what kind of safety guards do you have in place for, let's say if somebody's, maybe they did get an error, but now they're pushing, they fixed it and they're pushing run again. Maybe they've pushed, I'm not saying I'm guilty of this, but maybe a couple of times, right? Maybe they pushed the button a few times because they were very eager to get that item over to the ERP, or the other way, right? What kind of safeguards do you have in place to prevent duplicates like that? Because some do, right? But what about this?
Yeah, so that's where these key values are going to come into play. So again, as we process a transaction over to our ERP, we'll tag that specific source system ID here on the back end of this workflow. And then we reference that in the front end of this workflow when we do a get key value. So this is going to be the same key. If we pass a transaction with that source system key into this get key value node, if it's found, in this case, we won't do anything with it. That transaction will essentially be filtered out from the remainder of this workflow. Obviously, if it's missing, AKA we have not processed over that particular transaction and tagged it as a success, it'll allow the workflow to continue on with that specific transaction.
Wonderful. Thank you, Matt.
Not a problem, not a problem. So that is it from my side. Thank you all very much. Logan, I'll turn it back over to you.
Here's one of my favorites. James was piping in on the comments and he says, I love the bippity boppity boo moment. That is my favorite too, James. It's always fun to see those. Just for me, it's magic, right? And they come over.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Maria, if you would like to put my screen up there again as well, I can have my kind of final page here. Perfect. Thank you. Yeah. So I think from a Flowgear side of things, that's primarily what we wanted to accomplish today, was making sure everybody was just aware of who Flowgear is, what we do, and kind of how we fit into this market, as well as kind of shed some light on what it actually looks like from a demo perspective. As far as, let's call it, action items for next steps or moving forward, there's some items here on the screen that you'll see. So first and foremost, my contact information on the left. If there's just questions around capabilities, costs, timelines, feasibility, anything at all, feel free to send me an email or a text there. I'm more than happy to explain that. In the middle of the screen, you'll see there, anybody that's a bit more technical. One, if you go to flowgear.net, you'll see there's a button on the screen that says start for free. We actually give anybody access to a free trial of our platform. So if anybody wanted to go in there and maybe use it themselves, test out connections, see if they have the capabilities of building something out, we actually have a free certification course built into the platform. They are more than welcome to go do so. Right below that is just a link to my booking link for if you wanted to meet, just to kind of chat about use cases here, or one, get into a demonstration or a proof of concept discussion. We would be more than happy to do so. And then also one thing that was, let's call it, promoted here from the management from the upper guys, was anybody that kind of, let's call it, kind of continues the conversation from joining the webinar today, we would be more than happy to offer a discount around the professional services and implementing an integration answer for you. So they've kind of thrown out there a 15% discount for anybody that really does reach out post this webinar. So hopefully that's a little bit of incentive to reach out there. We'd be more than happy to offer that, but very much looking forward to hopefully hearing about some unique use cases and showing you guys a proof of concept on how Flowgear is feasible.
Wonderful. And we're so appreciative of that, Logan. Thank you. And definitely thank you, Matt, for showing us the technical side, a little bit under the hood. Some people like to see all of that, even if they don't want to be the one actually programming it, so to speak. They do still like to see it and understand how it works.
100%.
Wonderful. Well, since I'm only seeing one awesome person in the comments today, I'm not worried about it because our replay rates are a lot higher than our live. So people are busy, and certainly on a Friday, and I'm sure that there may be a few people who are going out and buying flowers and candy, and they're not very concerned with webinars today. So that's all right. But James is going to be the lucky winner of a bamboo phone stand and also a ConTech Financial sweatshirt. So thank you so much, James, for commenting today. And for anybody else, don't forget that they're offering, Flowgear is offering this 15% discount on professional services, which would be that portion of, hey, we want you to program this for us, right? In order for you to get set up with this.
Perfect.
Wonderful. All right. Well, thank you guys, and that'll be all she wrote. Y'all go have some trouble. I mean, some fun. And remember, for all of my accountants, we're not buying candy or even flowers until the 15th. This is how we value.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Have a
Thank
good one.
you, everybody. Very much appreciate the time.
Bye.